I'm musical director and author Mario Sprouse, and you're watching The Artists Forum.
Hi, I'm violin dealer Jonathan Solers, and you're watching The Artists Forum.
Good evening. Welcome to The Artists Forum. My name is Joshua Banbury, and this evening I have with us Mario. Mario,
Yes.
Welcome to The Artists Forum.
Thank you
for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So you are a man of many talents.
That's what they say.
Yes. What would you say has been your main focus artistically throughout your career?
Mostly it has been music. I have a degree in music from City College as a composer, but I play piano, I write music, I coach music. I'm also I am the artists coordinator for the arts ministry at Marble Collegiate Church, and so I've been doing that for a lot of years, more years than I care to admit, but I've been doing it for a long time.
And you studied music, you said, in college?
Yes, I've been playing piano since I was 7 years old.
Wow.
I'm a native New Yorker, so I love all of that music. My parents are from the Dominican Republic, and so I have Latino, I have West Indian influences all through me, and I use that in my music all the time.
How did you start your career as a professional musician?
Right out of college, actually. I formed a band when I was in junior high school a million years ago.
What kind?
It was a jazz band, West Indian band, and we just played everywhere. And out of all the band members, I'm the one who continued with it, and so it's been wonderful. Just started it and did it.
And you, if I'm correct, you were a musical assistant to Gordon Parks.
Yes, for 20 years.
20
I was
years.
his music assistant. We did 3 movies together, and I was in charge of putting together his entire music catalog, after he died in 2006. I'm also on the board of directors of the Gordon Parks Foundation. It was tremendous working with him. He was a wonderful Renaissance person, and you name the art, he was a part of it. And so it's my privilege and pleasure to continue working with the foundation on his behalf to promote his work.
And did his work inspire a lot of what you do today in your musical style?
Oh, lots of it. Because he never really categorized himself or put himself in one category. So I do all different kinds of music, from classical to country western, not so great at, but Latin music, classical music, all different types of music to write, to play, to arrange, to record, all different types of things.
Interesting. So, can you tell me a bit more about this book that you've
Yes,
written?
Precious and Honored, a spiritual handbook for artists. I mentioned that I am currently the arts coordinator for the arts ministry at Marble Collegiate Church, but I've been at that church since February of 1982. They started a group called the Actors Fellowship, and 10 years later I was asked to lead that group. So every week we would have lessons, and the idea is to encourage artists to use their God-given talents, not to give up, and not to adhere to the starving artist mentality. First of all, we eat too much. These starving artists, let me tell you, But at the same time, society, we get the idea that society doesn't really support artists, and yet they do. Without art, without music and art in some form, there isn't even silence. And so my mission has been to really encourage artists. But as a musician, I'm not a writer. Really, I didn't consider myself to be a writer, but for years, people have said, you should write a book, you should write a book, and I go, I'm not a writer. And then God said, write a book. I said, okay, yes, sir. And so that's what I started to do. And this is what came up, Precious and Honored. Really a shot in the arm, a spiritual shot in the arm, to let artists know that we have the divine spark of creativity within us, and if we pay attention to that and really go after it, our lives will unfold. So we don't have to think of ourselves as being at the bottom of the dregs of society, or the mega, making $1 billion a day. There's a really nice in-between place for us to be. And since we are one of a kind as artists, we have a monopoly. There's no one else like us, so we're not in competition with one another. Do what it is that God has blessed you with, and the way is made for you to go forward. That's how I live, and I've had a very successful life.
It seems that way. How long did it take you to write this book?
I started it in February of 2016. And it just slowly unfolded one thing after another. But as the arts ministry coordinator for all those years, I realized I've got 25 years worth of these lessons. Pick one. So I did. And this is really just the first one in a series of books, hopefully that will come out within the next few years.
Excellent. And this is not your first time being here with us at the Artists Forum. If I'm correct, back in 2001, you did a concert with them called Invitation to Heal.
Yes, that was right after 9/11. And that was a really interesting time because usually where there's some sort of a mega disaster, we look for some meaning, some way of coping. And it's always the arts. It's always the music. It's always poetry. So at that event, there were poets, there were people, there were other types of artists who were expressing not only how they felt about that event, but there were more people who said, my life can go at any time. I'm going to now devote myself to do the thing I really want to do. So art as a healing process, as a way of dealing with either hurt or disappointment or hope has always been at the fore. So it was a pleasure for us to collaborate with the Artists Forum at that time to put together a concert of healing, really.
You seem to have been involved in so many different mediums of art and, and performance. And
I love it.
How did you find a way to become good at one thing when you were involved in so many different disciplines?
Well, I think, that there's an expression that says jack of all trades and master of none, but I said, no, really, actually, if you're a jack of all trades, you're going to be pretty good because that's what people need. It isn't just one area. If I'm in a recording studio and I'm producing, I may also be writing, I may also be performing, I may also be arranging. So there, a lot of the different experiences that come out of all of those disciplines are necessary. So it isn't just one thing that I do. I try to explain it also by saying, if you live in an apartment building, you have a super. He does everything. Nothing gets done without the super. He does everything. So it's the same with me. So I've done voiceovers. I have a long career doing voiceovers, working with English as a second language, writing, composing, arranging, jingles, whatever. It's all part of the same creative spirit.
Excellent.
That's the way I look at it.
And speaking of that creative spirit, what do you have coming up next? What are your upcoming projects?
Lots of things, but one in particular, back in 1989, I did what's called a one-night stand at La Mama Experimental Theater. It was a show based on the life of entertainer from the 1920s, Josephine Baker in Europe. Did that, and then we did it the next year. Diana Ross and Lynn Whitfield came to see it. They loved it. So we now have a full-length play with music coming up. I believe the workshop is going to be at La Mama again in November. So I'm busy putting together the musical book for that, and the songs are coming out of my head.
Is it librettist, composer?
I'm the composer and the arranger. Glenn Borders, who did the original, is also, it's his book, it's his words. So oh, that's going to be so excited. I'm wonderful with that.
How can we keep up with what you're doing? Do you have a website or
I can't
social
even
media?
keep up with what I'm doing. But if you want to check out the Josephine Baker project, it is thedarkstarfromharlem.com. If you want to check out my work at Marble Collegiate Church, it would be Marble Collegiate Church or marblechurch.org. If you want to check out the book, it's preciousandhonored.net. You can buy books online there. Whatever I'm doing, sometimes I don't even know what I'm doing. I have to go on Google and figure out what am I up to today? What am I up to today? But it's because I live a very full and rich life. And I know a lot of people who are in the arts, and just that whole creative spirit is where I try to keep my life centered.
That's beautiful.
It is. I love it.
What can, I mean, you've given us so much wisdom already, but what are some words that you can impart to someone who's aspiring to be a composer, a librettist, or just a consummate artist like yourself?
Keep working at what you do. and it will come in a variety of different forms. Do not listen to someone who says, look, when are you going to get a day job or something? Don't listen, and here's the reason why. Every Wednesday in mid-afternoon on Broadway, millions of people come to see a show, and they're dragging along kids and they'll say, don't be an actor. But yet they're going to be spending $150 a shot to see an actor on a stage. They're going to go to the ballet and see people on the stage. They're going to go see singers and dancers, not to mention the backstage crew. The business can afford us.
People need the arts.
They need it. It is absolutely essential. So don't let anybody tell you, now, arts, you'll never make money in arts. Really? It's a multi-bazillion-dollar industry. What do you mean you can't make money in the arts?
Just have to work on it.
More than the money, though, it's your soul satisfaction. The thing that makes you alive. If this is what really, really stimulates you and makes you just come alive, you must do it. Because if you ignore it, you will be in hell. That's what it would feel like. You're tortured, and you don't want to be tortured. So do what you love.
That's beautiful. Well, thank you for joining us,
You're
Mario.
welcome. You're absolutely welcome.
And if you want to keep up with what we're up to here at the Artist Forum, you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at the Artist Forum. Once again, I am Joshua Banbury, and thank you for watching the Artist Forum. Good evening. Welcome to the Artist Forum. I'm Joshua Banbury, and tonight we have with us Jonathan Solars from FLORIAN LEONHARD FINE VIOLINS. Welcome, Jonathan.
Lovely to be here, thanks.
So you're a violinist.
I was, yeah. I mean, I was trained, brought up that way. I started the violin at the age of 4, and I went all the way through conservatory, went to Oberlin Conservatory. And
Masters as well?
Actually, no. See, this is part of the story, too, because I think, you know, I had decided probably by my senior year that maybe this career path wasn't perfect for me. But I was going to, you know, finish it out, and I was going to, you know, do the freelancing, and I was a member of an orchestra for a while, and I wasn't really happy doing it. And I think it's because, you know, for me personally, I was a perfectionist. And that can be great for music, and it can be bad. And for me, it was bad in that I would get into the practice room every day. And it was such a grueling thing, you know, to beat yourself up. And I couldn't find really any pleasure in the journey, which that's the trick if you're going to be successful, is to look at those sort of little steps and be content with that. But no matter how hard I worked or how good I got, you know, the goalposts kept moving further and further away. And I think I came home, you know, one day after a gig, and I really wasn't happy, and my girlfriend at the time said, well, have you ever thought about working in a violin shop? It's as if, you know, the heavens opened up and the angels sang, and what a marvelous idea. I was one of those kids that had violin posters all over his wall. As a kid, I didn't have the cars or swimsuit models or whatever. It was all about the violins. Gee, you know, that would be great. And you know, so I start going around town. I start talking to people.
This was after school?
So this is after school. So it was about a year or two after I came to New York City from my native Ohio, and I was getting my bow rehaired by Isaac Salco, who's the big bow guy in town. And I told Isaac, you know, my idea, and Isaac said, well, you should go upstairs and talk to Rene Morel. He just fired his sales guy. What's the worst he could say? No. Now, Rene Morel was the guy that everybody went to. And I mean, everybody went to him for the past 3 generations. Itzhak Perlman, Yo-Yo Ma, Sarah Chang, Joshua Bell.
He makes violins from...
They were, well, he would adjust their violins, he would be the repair person, he would advise them in sales. He was the guy to go to. And I thought, gee, this is absolutely insane. Like, Rene Morel would never hire a 25-year-old guy who'd never sold a violin in his life, when all he's got in his vault, you know, are Strads and Del Jesus and these priceless, you know, instruments. But I did go up and I did talk to him, and well, one thing led to another, and that was it. A week later, I was you know, meeting some of my childhood heroes, these great musicians, and that's sort of how I got started in this business and how I transitioned out of, you know, a career in violin.
So there's an office in London as well, isn't there?
Right, so our company, we've been in London for 22 years, I think now. New York, we've been open for just 5.
And you've been with the company since they've opened in New York?
So yeah, actually, my relationship with Florian goes back a little further than that even. So I met Florian at a party in 2009, I believe it was. And, you know, we had a really nice exchange. It was a brief exchange. But a few months later, I get this phone call out of the blue. And it's Florian, and he's talking to me because at this time, you know, Morel's had closed. He had ill health, and he'd gone on to become a consultant with an auction company in town. And so, you know, I started working together with Florian. I used him exclusively for expertise. He's got an amazing eye and is able to quickly identify what instruments are. And so that was important for me, because I think when you do what we do, it's important that everything you sell is always correct.
Yes.
And then we also started representing some of his instruments as well. And so this relationship grew organically over a period of time, and it wasn't until 2014 that we formed Florian Leonhard's here in New York.
And was it because that you saw a demand here in New York for?
Yeah.
Definitely?
Yeah, no, I mean, the opportunity was certainly there. I think the one thing that I thought was missing greatly in New York City at the time was expertise. And this is very, very important, because we're talking about these historic objects of art that cost, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars, sometimes millions of dollars. And so making sure that it's correct each and every time, regardless of whatever certificates that came with it said, you know, it's very important, because, you know, expertise evolves, the knowledge grows. And so you know, that was a softness that I detected in New York, and I thought that could really do well. And he's also a marvelous craftsman. I mean, he was, for the longest time, head of restoration at Hills, and that was the world premier, you know, violin shop for 100-odd years. And so so yeah, he brought a lot of really great things to the table that I thought could do really well in New York City.
And speaking of priceless violins, is this what we have here?
Yes, so I did bring something very special to share with your audience tonight. Just 2 days ago, we celebrated the 188th birthday of the great violinist Joseph Joachim. And Joseph Joachim was very good friends with Johannes Brahms. And they worked together on a number of pieces, but I think probably the most famous of them was Brahms' Violin Concerto. It was Joseph Joachim that gave the debut of the Brahms Violin Concerto in Leipzig. And this is a violin that once belonged to Joachim. He owned many instruments.
Wow.
This is a violin by Ruggieri from 1678.
Oh my God.
And
it was made in 1678, or?
That's right. So
wow.
made in Cremona, Italy. So it was the home of violin making for, you know, that entire golden period of violin making in Italy. And so yeah, the year 1678. But I think more significantly than that is this was his favorite bow. And this is a bow by Francois Tourt, made in 1805. And this was gifted to him by the cellist in his quartet, Hausmann. And it is said that Hausmann obtained the bow from Wilhelm Ernst, who was also himself a famous violinist. And it is reported that this was the bow that he was playing that evening in Leipzig when the world first heard the Brahms Violin Concerto for the first time. Yeah.
Thank you so much for bringing that.
Yeah, I mean, so much of what we do is so interwoven with history. Music is in a way telling of a tale at a certain time in history.
Yeah.
And the instruments also, you know, play a role in that as well.
Would you be able to play something on this now, or can you play on these
Trust
old?
me, all my clients will tell you they're very happy that I've transitioned into a role as an advisor as opposed to one as a violinist. I leave that entirely to the professionals.
Okay,
So
fair enough.
yeah.
But if you wanted to, would you be able to still play this and it sounded?
Oh, absolutely, yeah, and it is set up fully, to meet its next musician.
It looks brand new.
It's been really well cared for. The violin is in fantastic condition. You can see it's full of original varnish. The corners are in marvelous condition. There's no cracks. It's just been really well loved for all these years, and I think part of that is, I think when you have something in your possession like Joseph Joachim's violin or Joseph Joachim's bow or any other famous instrument, is we understand that our role isn't as an owner of an object. We are the ones that are passing through the lives of this instrument. So I think musicians and collectors generally take that role very seriously. And it's very nice when we do see them like this in this condition, that they've been loved and cared for these hundreds of years. And it's our hope that they'll be around hundreds of years from now.
Most definitely. So can you talk more about what the program does for aspiring violinists and musicians?
Sure. So, I mean, as a company, I think we have it interwoven into our DNA that we want to try and help advance the arts as much as we can. Now, obviously, our primary role is as brokers, but we do occasionally have the right to help young musicians by partnering them with sponsors who will obtain an instrument from us and allow us to loan it to somebody who's coming up that could really use it. I think we live in a time where I fear that I probably have sold my very last Strad to an actual violinist, because they've gone up so much in price. I mean, they're doubling now every 8 to 10 years in value. And so now with your average Strad running $9–10 million,
whoa,
it's inconceivable that a violinist could afford that. But it's so vital that a violinist is the user of this object, because it's, as an object of art, it's completely meaningless if it's not doing precisely what it was designed to do. And so its value really is in its sound. So we try as much as we can to help competitors, who are the next soloists of tomorrow, have an instrument for these competitions or for special concerts or performances, so that that the world does get to still experience these things. And also we try to help advance as many careers as we can. I mean, it's a very tough field, and I think going into an audition with a beautiful sounding violin could not hurt your chances.
Not at all. Well, speaking of careers, can you talk about more? What was it like to transition from being a full-time artist to now being someone who does more administrative work, sales work?
It was jarring, I think. When you come up as a musician, right? Our world is, I hate to use the word romanticized, but in a certain sense, it's true. I mean, we see things in this very idealistic light, and my view of the violin was as this, voice, essentially. I mean, as a singer, that can be a very intimate relationship. So I think transitioning to then treating them as a commodity, this thing that has a monetary value, when to me, you couldn't put a monetary value on a violin.
That's very interesting.
And it was, I had to sort of rework my thinking to understand that, well, there's a whole nother side of this. You have these, craftsmen who've created this violin, and they, like painters or other artists, command a certain value in the marketplace. So, that sort of got me interested in that aspect of history. So before that, my interest in music was about the composers, it was about the performers, but this added now an entirely new level to it. It was also weaving in these violin makers throughout these hundreds of years and seeing how they played a role in all these musicians' lives. And so I think, transitioning from a performance career to a professional career, it was eye-opening, but it was really great. I think finding a way to weave that in was the key.
What words of wisdom would you impart to someone who is trying to transition from more of an artistic life to a professional career in sales?
I mean, it's always been a bit of a mystery to me why an organization like Merrill Lynch or Goldman Sachs doesn't recruit at schools like Juilliard or Manhattan School of Music or Indiana University, because here you have this incredible workforce, essentially. These musicians have spent 20-odd years developing their skills, honing a discipline, getting into a practice room for 6 hours a day sometimes, and becoming like really, really good at something, focusing on very minute details.
Paying thousands of dollars.
Oh, I mean,
for
beyond
education.
that. But I mean, for a company, I think you have there a very unique skill set that you don't often find in a fresh out of school young person. You have this discipline, almost militaristic, level of discipline. And so why, companies in finance or legal don't seek that out more? It's a bit of a mystery to me. And I think there's always been this sort of dismissiveness about artists, or that from this sort of professional crowd. We do see successful musicians transition into the professional sphere as VPs in finance and lawyers and heart surgeons, and it's just about tapping into that talent and realizing it in a different way. I try to talk as much as I can about it, and I also try to encourage musicians to also think about branding themselves in an entrepreneurial way. I think we're a very interesting time in history where now musicians can now direct market themselves to an audience using social media, and you can create an audience for yourself. And I've, seen these young musicians with this drive and intelligence be able to switch that on, and all of a sudden they'll have 100,000 followers on Instagram, and orchestras will reach out to them because of what they bring to the table. So I think if you're a musician and you want to have this performance career, don't expect somebody to just hand it to you. Sometimes you can create that reality for yourself.
How can we keep up with what you're up to?
So you can find us on our website, www.florianleonhard.com. You can find us on Instagram @FlorianLeonhard, and on Facebook we're @FlorianLeonhard and Florian Leonhard New York.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
It was a pleasure.
I am Joshua Banbury, and you've been watching The Artists Forum. You can keep up with what we're up to on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And thank you for watching.